Hello and welcome back to the Pixel Tea. My name is Yolanda and welcome to my channel. If anyone could let me know in the chat, for those who are here for the live chat, if you can hear me okay. Oh wow, what an honor. FPV Angel, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're a huge inspiration to me and a lot of people that I listen and tune in and engage with here on YouTube. Wow. I know that I'm on track if I've got this kind of support. I'll take him back here for a second. But let me say hello here to some of my chatting friends and panel friends that I've made here on YouTube. Bex, hello and welcome. Ms. Zinger, so good to see you. Alchemos83, good to see you. Another great supporter in this adventure, in this journey. Yes, a pleasure to see you here, FPV. Again, these are people, my audience are fans of yours, sir. Yes, they are. Alchemos, another great content creator. All of us seem to be putting these puzzle pieces together. And my channel is not a big deal, but it's got a good group of people that are on a path of trying to enlighten themselves and to attain an awareness about this realm and how it works. Good to see you, Fools and Tools. Much love. So today, hold on just a moment here, bear with me. We're going to dive into the connections between the scripture of Genesis and quantum physics. Let us explore the parallels between ancient religious texts and modern scientific theories. The concept of creation, the nature of reality, and the interconnectedness of all things. These ideas are in Genesis scripture and in quantum physics. I hope to gain a deeper understanding of the universe and potential intersections between spirituality and science. Yeah, I'm not the only one who's binge watched the whole APM research and FPV. It is very mind-blowing. And you and your team have given us a manual, a visual manual, a verbal manual to follow. I forgot it was Valentine's Day again. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Yes. Yeah. And this information, this information is mind-blowing when you make the connections. I had no idea 10 years ago that I would be making a connection between revelations and quantum physics. I never thought that. And now I know that I'm on the right path. I don't think, and I'm going to agree with FPV when he's mentioned this before, this information doesn't belong to just anybody. It belongs to all of us. And I never thought that my channel would go in this direction. But I'm really honored that I have a space to just come up here and share some thoughts with people and to have conversations with all of you about what I see and your perspectives on it. So, I'm going to start off with something that may be a little boring, but as someone who enjoys pattern recognition, I went through 3 years worth of screenshots that I was making and added them into an album. And so I'm going to share that album with you today. But I want to show you first that this is the visual aid that we will have for today. Is this image here? This is a recent release from the Webb telescope. And in the album, you're going to see the former photo of this and the high definition that this photo is in comparison. But this symbol is in everything. This is this pattern here, this sacred geometry that is in the cosmos. This is a brand new star. This is the birth of a star. And to me, I want to read some of Genesis to you and definitions of quantum physics. And to me, this is a macro version of the micro, which is even us in essence. But I'm going to use this photo to also show you that this is like the concept that FPV has shown us and the video, especially in the videos that I've shared of the Genesis machine that we live in. And there are many Genesis machines. But I think that this is also what the earth is going through right now. You see this beam of energy that's shooting straight through. This is what the Thunderbolts project brought to my attention as the squatter man. You can see a dome above and you can see a dome below. And you can see right here in the center, that's where I would guess the birth of our world would be, which would be Earth, what we would know as Earth. But I've been looking at the Schumann resonance and paying attention to all of what's happening with this weather right now, just in particularly these last 3 weeks. And the Schumann resonance is going off like crazy. For those of you who tune in to me, I like to focus on something that is called the pole shift. And it's almost like this Genesis machine is just surging right now with energy, and it's trying really hard. It's not trying, it is releasing from the earth right now. That's why we, I think, have these interesting fog patterns that are happening all over the world. Um, the earth is releasing a vapor, and FPV's team speaks of this. Another content creator that I enjoy is Jay Dreamers. Jay Dreamers brings us an awareness of what he calls the plasma apocalypse. And in the center of this photo is a jet of plasma to me. Well, it's all plasma. It's all plasma, but look at that particular signature of energy that's shooting right through it. So enough of my talking. Let me check in here in the chat again. They all help paint that big picture. They have tried so hard to fragment. And I agree because it's taken these petroglyphs, um, looking at indigenous cultures and the dances that they do and the headsets and the costumes, verbal stories of cosmology creations, stories, etc. It's over and over again. It's an infinite record of the same story. as I am seeing it anyway. I appreciate that. Thank you, Rachel, because right now we have a lot of distraction happening amongst the world in terms of politics. And for me, I feel like this is more important, is looking into what is happening in the now moment of the world in terms of this weather. Because I live in California and we just had um, a lot of earthquakes about an hour away from me, an hour and a half away from me, which is down in the Bay Area. And that was called the Hayward Fault. It's called the Hayward Fault Line. And there are earthquakes happening down in San Diego as well right now. Yellowstone has a lot of earthquakes going around, but the last stream, larger stream that I did was about the networking of the volcanoes that are going off. So I think that's a really important topic to bring light upon, other than the politics, because there are many other channels focusing on that. And so I don't need to be one to add on to that chaos topic of politics. It's a never ending loop that is exhausting to me. But I had some fun with the AI image generator, and I thought that this, to me, I was blown away that the AI helped me out with this photo, because even in the center of scripture, it's showing us an upside down dome. And the part of Jay Dreamer's stream that I'm going to show you today, share with you, he speaks of something called the apex dome. And he describes the apex dome as what is above at the top, and it is the reflection, and that it will reveal itself at the right time when everything aligns just right. And that when this event happens, such a surge of energy shoots into this realm that either people survive this energy and they pass this information down and potentially create a new creation story and new religions from what they experienced, or is it a complete redo? I don't know. It's not. I know that whatever happens, this has happened many times before. But again, I'm blown away with what the AI has shown me, and I wanted to share it with you. I used these. I shared my short in the very beginning of today's stream, but I was really impressed with what it gave me. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and share my album with you. Sit back and enjoy. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I'm so honored that you're all here. Yes, this information was from previous resets and research. I agree. And that's the fun of the pattern recognition that I enjoy doing. But I wanted to share some reading with you instead. And I'm going to add my other device here so that I can share the picture with you of the book, because this book has the most beautiful photos shared in it as well. And I recommend you looking into this book if you're interested in quantum physics. It's called The Cosmic Dance. I really hope you guys. Wait a minute. I'm being terrible at my presentation today. Little, it's a little frustrating. But I think I'm going, instead of doing the reading, I'm going to try one more thing. Hold on just a moment. All right, I hope that fixed it. Because I know as I'm talking, my computer is lagging and I can't communicate with you, and I'm not very happy about that. But anyway, okay. Good grief, Yolanda, get your act together. Okay, in this first chapter of this book, it says, by looking down, I see upward. By looking up, I see downward. And I am trying to get over a cold, so I apologize if my voice is, if I'm not coming through clearly. It says, it is said in the Emerald Tablet, a cryptic Hermetic text dated to between 200 and 800 CE, attributed to the legendary Egyptian Hellenistic figure Hermes Trismegistus, that the phrase "as above, so below" that's where it derives from. A translation of a later Latin version of the text gives the entire line as "that which is above is like to that which is below, and that which is below is like to that which is above," to accomplish the miracles of one thing. In the West, during the medieval and Renaissance periods, it was thought that the Emerald Tablet was a summary of alchemical principles containing instructions for turning base metals into gold and secret of immortality. By the 16th century, however, the text was being interpreted by many, including occultists and alchemists John Dee between 1527 and 1609, along more metaphysical lines, with the one thing being associated with the Platonic idea of anima mundi, world soul, in which the world is viewed as a single living entity containing all other living entities, and that all living things are connected. The modern counterpart to this idea is the Gaia hypothesis, proposed by scientist James Lovelock and biologist Lynn Margulis in 1974. Taking its name from the Greek goddess Gaia, the personification of Earth and mother of all life, the Gaia hypothesis contends that the Earth is a complex, self-regulating system in which living organisms have a synergistic relationship with their environment and the atmosphere, co-evolving with them. In this way, the balance of the whole is maintained and optimal conditions for all life on the planet are perpetuated. Since the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt, humankind has sought to comprehend how the universe came into being and to divine patterns and order within it. We have striven to understand the nature of humanity and our place in the universe. We have searched for correspondence between the heavens and the earth and between nature and the human body. And we have taken part in secret rituals in the hope of discovering the secrets of the universe, achieving spiritual enlightenment and immortality. The ancient Egyptian Ouroboros symbol, depicting a snake or dragon coiling to eat its own tail, originally represented the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, with the snake's process of shedding skin symbolizing the transmigration of souls. The term Ouroboros is derived from ancient Greek, which translates as tail eating. For the Gnostics, the Ouroboros symbolizes the unity of the divine and earthly in humanity, contrary forces coexisting as either end of the creature for eternity. In Hinduism, the Ouroboros symbolizes Kundalini, or primal energy, and the endless cycle of life through reincarnation. The symbol can also be found in a document known as the Chrysopoeia of Cleopatra, 3rd century CE, with the words, "The all is one," inscribed in the center, attributed to Cleopatra the alchemist. In alchemical terms, it represents eternity and endless return. Alchemist Michael Mayer, 1568 through 1622, author of Atlanta Fugens, I don't know the correct pronunciation of that word. Um, anyway, it names Cleopatra as one of only 4 female alchemists to have been able to create the Philosopher's Stone, a mythical substance also known as the elixir of life, that was thought capable of turning base metals into gold and enabling immortality. Did God create the universe out of nothing or out of chaos? Or did the universe emerge from a cosmic egg with the primordial being Pangu, who separated the opposing forces of yin and yang to form heaven and earth, as believed by the ancient Chinese? And that, again, is why I shared the photo in the very beginning. Were heaven and earth formed by forcible separation of the primordial sky father Rangi and earth mother Papa, bringing light to the world as related in Maori mythology? Did the creator beings of the Aboriginal Australians form the land, rivers, plants, animals, humans, and sky of the earth as they made their song lines or dreamlike tracks across the land during dreaming? Every culture has a creation myth to explain how the universe came into being. In Shaivism, a tradition with Hinduism, Shiva, sometimes represented as the cosmic dancer, Nataraja, is the supreme god and brought the universe into being with a creation dance. He is usually depicted dancing within a circle of flames, which symbolizes his power to destroy the universe at will with a dance of destruction. Everything that is in the heavens, on the earth, and under the earth is penetrated with connectedness, is penetrated with relatedness. And that's a quote here in the book. There's another quote that says, "Constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things have reference to one perception, the perception of this one living being, and how all things act with one movement, and how all things are cooperating causes of all things which exist. According to the Vedic texts, which are the foundation of Hindu belief, the spirit of the divine being exists in all living things, and the self in every human being is the same as that and as the same that in the supreme being. In the Chinese Taoist philosophical tradition, the Tao, or way, can be described as the flow of the universe. Humankind is part of that flow and must act in harmony with the cycles and patterns of the universe. If an individual asserts their will against the natural rhythms of the universe, they may disrupt that harmony, and the consequence of their action may be different from the one intended. Yin and yang must always be held in balance. When one rises, the other will fall. Yin and yang are bound together, and one whole. Each transforms the other. The roots of Taoism can be found in the I Ching, or Book of Changes, a divination manual dating from 1000 to 750 BC, in which 64 named hexagrams, each with a short cryptic statement, can be consulted at random and interpreted to determine divine intent. In ancient Greece, Plato, 428 347 BC, and the later Neoplatonist philosophers attempted to define the relationship of human beings to the universe with the concept of microcosm and macrocosm. They viewed the individual human being as a little world, microcosmos, the composition and structure of which corresponded to that of the universe or great world, macrocosmos. The original meaning of cosmos was order, and implied a harmonious and aesthetically beautiful arrangement of parts in any organic system. The concept of microcosmic and macrocosmic worlds is founded upon the idea that there is a universal similarity of pattern or structure from the largest scale to the smallest. Every living thing is a miniature, discrete world, complete in itself, whose composition and structure corresponds to that of the cosmos. Humanity is a reflection of the universe, containing all the essential elements presented in the latter, a microcosm suspended in the matrix of the macrocosmos. Human nature is therefore reflected in the nature of the universe. The rules and forces governing all organisms are the same as those shaping and governing the entire universe. Each simple substance is a living mirror of eternity, and everything that happens in the macrocosm is reflected in the microcosm. For example, ancient Greek philosopher Empedocles, excuse me, I should drink a little bit of water here, postulated that the four basic elements, air, fire, earth, and water, made up all the structures on earth. Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC, later added a fifth element, ether, or quintessence, a sublime substance from which the stars were made. The four earthly elements were later aligned to the four humors, or vital bodily fluids, identified by the father of Western medicine, Hippocrates, 460 to 370 BC, as blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. The humors were thought by physician Galen of Firmigon, 129 to 216 CE, to influence the temperament of an individual, sanguine, choleric, melancholic, or phlegmatic, phlegmatic, which is what I am right now. And each was associated with a specific organ: a liver, gallbladder, spleen, and brain or lungs. The elements were also assigned to the signs of the zodiac, relating to the 12 star constellations. For example, Gemini is an air sign, Leo a fire sign. Galen also believed that diseased parts of organs of the body could be treated by plants or parts of plants that bore a likeness to them. Jacob Boehm, 1575 through 1624, developed and communicated the concept widely, naming it the doctrine of the signatures. Herbalist Nicholas Culpeper, 1616 through 1654, and botanist William Coles, 1626 through 1662, were ardent proponents of the doctrine, believing that God had endowed medicinal herbs with a physical sign, a signature of their therapeutic purpose. Neoplatonist philosopher Plotinus, 270 CE, postulated that all matter and all living beings could be placed in a hierarchical structure that begins at the top with God and finishes at the bottom with minerals. He called it the great chain of being. Each form in the hierarchy shares a characteristic with the previous form. So the chain presents a graduation of every kind of thing in existence in the universe, developed further during the medieval period. The key segments of the chain were God followed by the angels, spirit only, followed by humans, animals, and then plants, a combination of spirit and matter, and finally, at the base of the chain minerals, matter only. The ancient Greek philosophers surmised that as every form in the chain was linked to the next, transmutation from the kind of thing to another must be possible. They believed that the prima materia, or first matter of the universe, could be worked upon to create the philosopher's stone, which could then be used to turn base metals into gold and achieve immortality. Greco-Egyptian alchemist and Gnostic mystic Zosimos of Panopolis, 300 CE, authored the earliest known book on alchemy. He held that the transmutation of lead into gold mirrored an inner process of purification and redemption. Jabir ibn Hayyan purported to have lived in the 8th century and to have authored a vast number of alchemical works, assigned pairings of the basic qualities of hotness, coldness, dryness, and moistness to each classical element, holding that by rearranging the qualities of one metal, a different metal could be made. In Europe during the Renaissance, medical and occult branches of alchemy developed simultaneously with John Dee, claiming that the philosopher's stone might be used to communicate with angels. By the 19th century, alchemy was considered a mystical practice rather than a practical science, concerned primarily with achieving spiritual enlightenment. The ancient symbol of the axis mundi, world axis or center of the world, often represented by the motif of the world tree, extends the concept of the macrocosm being reflected in the microcosm, with the idea of an axis or path that connects every part of the universe. In depictions of the world tree, the trunk connects the surface of the earth with the heavens above via its branches and the underworld below via its roots. The world tree in Norse mythology is the ash tree, Yggdrasil. It represents the center of the cosmos and is said to be the place the gods assemble daily to hold their courts. A squirrel Ratatotsker runs up and down the trunk carrying messages between the eagle, who resides at the top of the tree, and the serpent who lives beneath its roots. The human body can also be used as a symbol of the world axis or center. In the Vitruvian Man, 1492, Leonardo da Vinci 1519 highlights the symmetry and proportions found within the male body, believing that it is the reflection of the design of the universe. In many philosophical traditions around the world, it is believed that individuals might ascend or descend the axis or path in pursuit of knowledge and insights from the higher or lower realms with the ultimate aim of moving beyond the microcosmic realm into the macrocosmic. Central to the religious practices of shamanism, originating in North Asia and associated with the indigenous and tribal societies, is the belief that a practitioner can journey to the spirit world, perhaps employing trance, to communicate with the spirits and use spiritual energy to heal those in physical world below. For the Yoruba people of West Africa, it is the priests known as Babalawos who provide a link between the spiritual world of Arun, Arun, reigned over by the creator god, Oldumar, and inhabited by lesser deities or Orisha, and the material world of Ai, inhabited by all life on earth. Using the divinatory system known as Ifa Babalawos interprets messages from Orisha for individuals seeking personal guidance. The motif of the tree of life is found in many religions, including Christianity. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, it is said to be found in the Garden of Eden, where it symbolizes eternal life alongside the tree of knowledge. The Islamic tree of life describes the Quran is known as the tree of immortality. This tree was traditionally depicted on prayer mats and elaborately carved into the stone windows of the mosques, the most famous of which is the Sidi Syed Mosque in Gujarat, India. The motif often features in Palamporas, hanging created in the Mughal and Deccan courts during the 18th century. These hand-painted textiles are highly elaborate and intricate in their design, featuring abundant leaves, flowers, fruits, exotic birds around underlying branches and trunk, while many animals cavort around the base of the tree, which is generally depicted growing out of a stylized mound or hill. Mosques often feature floral patterns of depictions of fruit and vegetables in their architecture, alluding to the paradise to be found after death. The 12th and 13th centuries witnessed the emergence of Jewish Kabbalah, and esoteric mystical teachings of the relationship between the eternal Ein Sof, no end, and his creation, the universe. During the Renaissance, it caught the attention of Pico della Mirandola (1463 to 1494), who developed a form of Christian Kabbalah on which Johannes Reuchlin, I think that's how you say it, 1522, wrote the text De Arte Cabalistica, 1570. It was Reuchlin who designed the first diagram of the Kabbalistic tree of life. The diagram presents numbered nodes or spheres called Sipparoth, each representing a divine energy, and together depicting the map of creation and humanity's place in it. Set out in 3 columns or pillars of energy, interconnected by 22 paths. Rabbi Isaac Lura, 1534 through 1572, known as Arazal formulated the Kabbalah into a comprehensive system known as the Quranic Kabbalah, which he taught in Safed, Israel. His disciple Rabbi Haim Vital collected all his lecture notes and eventually the Etz Chaim or Etz Chaim tree of life, which produced from them the Kabbalistic Sikhs. Self-knowledge and understanding of the universe and God by ascending the tree of life sphere by sphere until he reaches his higher self and spiritual enlightenment. The wheel of life, or the Baba Chakra, represented the Buddhist view of existence as a cycle of life, death, and rebirth, which Buddhists seek to escape by achieving enlightenment. The wheel is divided into 5 or 6 realms: gods and angry gods, human hungry ghosts, animals, and hell. The figure depicted holding the wheel is Yama, signifying impermanence, and at the center of the wheel are the 3 fires of suffering: greed, ignorance, hatred, represented by a rooster, a pig, and a snake. The Buddha generally sits outside the wheel. He has escaped the cycle of death. Multiple circles or wheels are central to the concept of the chakras found in early Hindu, Buddhist, and Jainist traditions. By the early medieval period, chakras had come to symbolize nodes of psychic energy within the physical body. Every human being existing simultaneously on a physical level and on a psychological and mental level known as the subtle body. The 2 planes affect one another. So if one is damaged or blocked, the other will suffer corresponding harm. The number of key chakras in the body varies between 4 and 7, depending on precise beliefs. Each node is arranged in a column from the base of the spinal cord to the crown of the head, connected by vertical pathways called nandi. By energizing each chakra through breathing exercises, meditations, and mantras, energy flow through the chakras remains fluid, and mind and body maintain an even balance. In tantric thinking, by bringing each chakra into alignment, the practitioner can achieve perfect harmony of mind, body, and spirit, and thereby attain full spiritual understanding or awakening. Meditation plays a key part in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Shintoism, and mandalas and associated mantras aid the individual in its practice. The geometric composition of a mandala usually features representation of deities, paradises, and shrines, forming a spiritual map for the practitioner who journeys from the outermost ring to the center, contemplating the content of each layer in turn. In a simple Hindu mandala, a deity is depicted in a circle in the center of a square, with a gate on each side in the shape of a T. A Buddhist mandala might depict the Pure Land, or it might visualize the entire universe with Mount Meru as the axis mundi. In the center, or it might present the 5 Buddhas, each embodying a different aspect of enlightenment. Common symbols include a wheel with 8 spokes, representing the perfect universe and the eightfold path to enlightenment of Buddhism, a ring of fire symbolizing the purification of wisdom, a ring of 8 tombs, reminding the practitioner of the impermanence of life, and the lotus flower, indicating balance through symmetry, and representing it in its growth from underwater towards the light, the desire to reach for spiritual enlightenment. I'm going to take another sip of water. Sand painting is a crucial part of healing ceremonies practiced by the Navajo people of southwestern USA. The sand paintings are based on traditional symmetrical Navajo designs, featuring images of holy people. Each sand painting acts as a portal to the spirit world. The medicine man or woman calls on the spirits of the holy people depicted in the sand paintings to enter the design while the patients sit on top of it to absorb the spiritual power and allow the spirits to ingest the illness. At the end of the ceremony, the sand painting is destroyed, with it, the illness it has absorbed. In its geometric presentation of symbols, the Aztec sunstone is a form of mandala. Carved by the Aztecs during the reign of Moctezuma between 1501 and 1520, Moctezuma II. It was discovered in 1790 under the main square of Mexico City, previously the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. Excuse me. Excuse me. At the center of the vast, intricately carved stone is what is thought to be the face of the solar deity Tonatiuh. Around the central deity are carved four squares, representing the four previous suns or eras. These are surrounded by a concentric circle of signs corresponding to the 20 days of the Aztec calendar. It is likely that the sunstone was used in sacred rituals involving human heart sacrifice, conducted to ensure the Earth's survival for the next Aztec cycle of 52 years. The creation of imagery has always been integral to the development of philosophy and science, religion, and the occult. These captivating pages take you on a visual journey from the microcosm to the macrocosm, from the infinitesimal wonders of the subatomic world to the inconceivable vastness of infinite space. Drawn from 3,000 years of philosophical, religious, and scientific inquiry, they inspire awe and wonder, impact meaning, and promote mindful reflection on the complexity, pattern, and beauty of the natural world and the place and purpose of humanity and the universe. And that is the first chapter of this book. Oh, wow. I have missed a lot of comments here. I don't even know where to start. Give me just a moment so I can catch up here. Well, I'm glad that there are those in the chat that are enjoying engaging in conversation with one another. And I want to just say, you can tell that reading aloud is not my is a weakness of mine. It is not a strength. So I appreciate those who stayed with me and tuned in to my reading. Um, Doing these streams gets me out of my comfort zone. So I'm practicing and speaking my thoughts aloud and sharing what I enjoy researching with all of you. But isn't that a great introduction to the connectedness of all? Thank you, Ms. Bex. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you. I appreciate you too. I agree. I'm going to share this. You never know who it may encouraged to do their own research. There's another YouTuber by the name of Red Squid X Files, and I really got to engage in my first chat adventure with Red. And Red creates albums on his channel of synchronized examples of art, architecture, you name it. He makes all of those connections. I was reading from a book called The Cosmic Dance by Stephen Ellick. I will write it down in the chart for you, Lev. Um, and unfortunately, in the beginning of my stream, I did not mean for my camera to be on my face. And I want to apologize. I I have been really trying to mend my body, heal my body from this cold and flu season. And that's one of the videos that I'm going to share from FPV and his team in the weather. Yeah, I'm a hot mess. I'm not even going to lie. I have my hair, I have my hair back um with anyways, you know what you all go through when you don't feel well and you're trying to get better. And it is what it is. Anyways, um I think I lost my train of thought. But you know what? I needed that little bit of that side note there. All right, let's see. So, let's share this tab instead. See, the laughing made me a little bit dizzy. Silly me. Okay, here is my community page, and here's a nice sun halo on the 13th in the Philippines. And yesterday, there was a 6.0 earthquake in Ethiopia rift zone. Looks like, he says, looks like things are starting to stir back up underneath this area. So Ethiopia was rocking about 3 weeks ago. I've shared daily events worldwide. I've shared his channel as well on my last stream. Great channel for updated information for weather. Um, this was the swarm of earthquakes that were happening in Hayward here in California, and so on. Okay. So again, I just want to highlight that I do use my community page. They used to be called community page, but YouTube switched it to posts. Um, and I like to share. I try not to go overboard with sharing a lot of the videos that I enjoy to watch, but the videos I do share are of content creators that I think are doing a great job on spreading the awareness on this topic, and also for the networking of the smaller channels that I am participate with as well. But the weather is definitely something that I enjoy sharing. Um, so let's change this here. I'm going to share with the first video that I'm going to share today is going to be from Mr. MBB 333. I've shared his content many times before, but tune into what he's talking about in this particular clip today.
Hope everybody's doing well and having a great day. We talked about the planetary positions here recently. The planets are all sharing the same side of the sun, as you can see over here at my sky map. Mercury, Earth, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus are all back here, right? Every time the stars get crowded like that, we see an increase in volcanic activity and earthquake activity. There's a volcano near Anchorage, Alaska, according to this article over here at the GazetteExtra.com. Goes on to say earthquakes are rumbling under Alaska volcano. Officials say is it about to erupt. A volcano near Alaska's most populous city is showing signs it could be headed towards an eruption. And that's because of the earthquake swarm that's currently underway right now as I do this video at Mount Spur, Alaska. Mount Spur is right here. This is where all the earthquake activity's at. And Anchorage, of course, is right over here, about 75 miles to the east. Article goes on to say Mount Spur, which sits about 75 miles west of Anchorage, has seen volcanic unrest for the last 10 months, including an increasing number of earthquakes, according to a February 6th statement from the Alaska Volcano Observatory. This article here is about 15 hours old. And checking in on the situation over in Greece, article over here at the independentco.uk goes on to say Earthquake Island, how 10,000 tremors in 2 weeks have left the Instagram favorite Santorini deserted. Usually teeming with tourists, many earthquakes have seen the Greek island of Santorini pretty much vacated as gray clouds descend upon the deserted tourist hotspot of Santorini. The strongest earthquake out of thousands in the past few nights struck the Greek island. They go on to say there's a secondary island now that's been evacuated. As you can see, the earthquake swarm over here at the USGS is expanding. It's getting bigger. So the situation over here in the Mediterranean Sea involving the island of Santorini and obviously an underwater volcano that appears to be waking back up or quite possibly a new one. But anyway, Santorini is right here. It's been evacuated. And I believe this island right here has also been evacuated. So we're seeing an increase in earthquake activity. We're seeing an increase in volcanic activity. And with regard to the planets in the solar system, they're going to be this way for a few more weeks. So look for this activity to continue for at least that long, maybe longer. Also in this video, you guys are going to hear some strange sounds coming from the sky. You guys are going to see a weird sky. In fact, we're going to get right to that. A video that was shared with me of a highly unusual sky around 6:30 p.m. This video has narration. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. It's Monday, February 10th, 2025.
Okay, so I played this for you because I wanted to connect with what's going on with these signs of revelations that I really feel that this is what's going on when we're talking about a pole shift, these earthquakes, vapor canopies developing, uh, oceans turning different colors, waters evaporating, you name it, it's happening right now. So, my title today is Quantum Genesis, right? So, I showed you this photo, which is a new star being born in the universe. And here's a zygote, the very beginning of life in a human being. You see the similarity? It's the same creation pattern. And I read that chapter specifically because there's so much arguing over religion, and people kill one another over their religion. And you can see in that example, in that first chapter, that it's this that every there's many cultures that have their creation stories, and it's just unbelievable to me that I hear on all of these quantum genesis. See, now I think you guys are finally starting to see where I'm coming from. Let's see here. Let me entire screen. This is what I want to share. I want to make sure you guys can see that. But it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, which is why I chose that photo from the Webb telescope. Just use, let me go back and share that photo instead. Let me put that back on the screen to give as a visual aid as I'm reading this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So in that photo, you can see above and you can see below. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from the water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. So I'm hearing this Fibonacci golden ratio, sacred geometry happening over and over and over, and that is creation. That is what I'm hearing is the Genesis machine that FPV showed us in the last video on my last stream that I shared. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. So I could go on and on reading Genesis to you, but I think that for those who are tuning in, this is Genesis, right? These are examples of Genesis. But let me read you about quantum physics. And again, I'm going to share with you what the AI produced for me. Isn't that beautiful? It created Genesis. It says quantum mechanics is a fundamental theory that describes the behavior of nature at and below the scale of atoms. And isn't that interesting? They call it atoms, and in scripture, his name is Adam. It is the foundation of quantum physics, which includes quantum chemistry, quantum field theory, quantum technology, and quantum information science. Quantum mechanics can describe many systems that classical physics cannot. Classical physics can describe many aspects of nature at an ordinary macroscopic and microscopic scale, but it is not sufficient for describing them at very small submicroscopic scales. Most theories in classical physics can be derived from quantum mechanics as an approximation. Um, Quantum mechanics arose gradually from theories to explain observations that could not be reconciled with classical physics, such as Max Planck's solution in 1900, the black body radiation problem, and the correspondence between energy and frequency in Albert Einstein's 1905 paper, which explains the photoelectric effect. These early attempts to understand microscopic phenomena, known as the Old Quantum Theory, led to the development of quantum mechanics in the mid-1920s by Niels Bohr, Erwin Schrödinger, Werner Heisenberg, Max Born, Paul Dirac, and others. The modern theory is formulated in various specifically developed mathematical formulas, and one of them, a mathematical entity called wave function, provides information in the form of probability amplitudes about what measurements of particle energy, momentum, and other physical properties may yield. Quantum mechanics allows the calculation of properties and behavior of physical systems. It is typically applied to microscopic systems, molecules, atoms, and subatomic particles. It has been demonstrated to hold for complex molecules with thousands of atoms, but its application to human beings raises philosophical problems. So I could go on giving you a background on quantum physics, but I think you guys know what I'm trying to do here in showing that potentially mathematics is also has representation of holy teachings in ancient scripts, and they get rewritten and they get facelifts. Things get added potentially, things get subtracted. Hello and welcome, Jason. You're new to my channel. Photoelectric effect is where the idea of photons were born. See, I love geeking out over this. I love to learn. There is something new to learn every single day. My math made my life. Yes. Yes, it seems that is the creator's language. Ah, thank you. Jason, thank you for being here. Okay. Um, See, unfortunately, for me, mathematics has not been an easy language for me. I struggle really hard with mathematics. But believe it or not, I love going into the different sectors that there are on YouTube, and I can sit there and watch a lecture on quantum physics and enjoy it and not understand completely what they're doing, but I understand that it is a language. Much respect to you, especially if you're part of the APM research team. So let's see here. What video do I have for you next? I think what I'll do at the end is try to see if I can play my album and share even the syncretism of the channels that I follow and the different articles that I screenshot, and hopefully my computer won't go kaput. Oh, good. I'm looking forward to it. You know, I am, sir. Absolutely looking forward to that. Okay, so let's see what we have next in line here. Okay, next we're going to hear from someone who is going to break down Hebrew, but not just any Hebrew. This one's going to be fun, believe it or not. This is from a channel called Restoration of the Breach.
Shalom, everybody. I have received many requests to do a video discussing different uses of the letters, how to understand them, and if they can be applied to various other languages, how the gematria works, and do things like slang and ebonics apply to it. So, let us address all of these things today. I'll give brief demonstrations using the crown jewel, and then we'll address the 231 gate cipher, as well as two other ciphers that are included. Collectively, there are 7 secret ciphers, which reveal the nature of all of these things. In this video, we will discuss 4. Now, the crown jewel, which is associated with the level of Ain, are divided between 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Of course, Mem is written one of 2 ways, and so it comes to include its Sophite form. 7 double letters, which are Beit, Gimel, Kaf, Fe, Tav, Resh, and Dalet. And 12 elemental letters that are Tet, Tzadi, Zain, Ain, Yud, Lamed, Samek, He, Chet, Nun, Vav, Kof. They're called elemental letters because they stem from one of the mother letters, which are the elements. Now, the 22 letters plus the additional Mem for its Mem Sophite is the secret of the word Emet, or truth. This is primarily concealed in the verse Emet leYaakov, truth to Yaakov, and also Torah of truth, Torah of Emet, which comes to include the 22 letters, their fixed positions, and the additional Mem Sophite. Now, It is well known, the concept of Aleph separates Mem from Shin, which has been discussed and reviewed at length. We understand the basic core concepts that Shin is fire, Aleph is air, Mem is water, and Mem Sofit is the earth. The general principle being Aleph separates Mem from Shin. An example, the principle of the air separates liquids and solids from the light. However, these three mother letters give birth, as it were, to all of the other sounds, they being the secret faculties of speech. Shin, or high frequency, corresponds to the tongue, which makes the sound thereof, the letter S in English. S. The throat, which is a mid frequency, making the sound of the letter Aleph, which is letter A in English. And Mem, corresponding to the lips, or a low frequency, letter M in English, like this. Thus, through a combination of the throat, lips, and tongue, all of the other sounds come into existence. Thus, they give birth, as it were, to these other sounds. A few prime examples. We'll take the double letter Bait here. The letter Bait corresponds to letter B in English. When trying to pronounce this sound, ba, you will find that you'll need a combination of the lips and the throat, or two faculties, ba. Thus, they are called double letters, in that they are produced from two mother letters. We can understand this in a much deeper way when we look at these things in terms of their principles and meanings. The letter Bait by itself, as in the letter as a word, Bait, means a house. Thus, we can see this in things like Beit HaMikdash, or the Holy Temple, where Beit, of course, means house. We see this in English, like the letter B, for example, in the word box, for a box essentially houses something. But let us take it into a much higher level. At a higher level, when we analyze the principles that were presented in the creation of this double letter, we find air houses water. So we ask the question, does the air house the water? An example, go outside and behold, air houses water. We can see this in the clouds in the sky. But let us enter into a much deeper level of this. We can see this in the letter Beit, for example, air house water, like in the word hevel, which can also mean breath in Hebrew. And we see this in the letter B in English in the word breath. We can see this in the letter B in the word lav, heart, lev, heart. Why? Because the heart does what? Oxygenates the liquids. An example, mixes the air with the blood. Thus, we see in the word breath. And what is breath? Air that houses water. Thus, when a person takes a breathalyzer test, they are testing the liquid or alcohol content in the air or breath they're breathing. Or B, the word signifies. Now, if it is true forwards, air houses water, and indeed it is, we see this in example of the word breath, it must be also backwards. Water houses air. And thus, we can see this, for example, in the letter B in the word bubble. The letter B in the word bubble denotes water housing air. We also see that water houses air as a fundamental principle when analyzing the components of water. An example, H2O. We find that water, in fact, does house air. This is precisely what the fish breathe in through their gills. Having established that air houses water and water houses air, and given basic examples to suffice the two, let us go into deeper levels. The letter Aleph has been made known inside of Likutei, could refer to as a variable. Thus, this can be read as a variable housed in water. We can see this in words like baby.
So again, I'm playing this for you all because this is deciphering language mathematically. He's also going to explain to you what gematria is and how that works in this chart. So bear with me. Again, this is just more information for you, and I hope you're enjoying it.
For the word baby refers to what? A variable housed in water. We can see this in words like blink. You blink to provide water to your eyes. We can see that blinking is a direct response to the eyes drying out from the air. Furthermore, by analyzing these principles, for example, housed in water, We can see in words like body, where the letter B in the word body teaches that it is primarily made out of water. We can see it like in the word birth, which means that the water breaks. We can see this in the word bath, which is variable that enters into water. We can also see this viewed in terms of words like baptize, etc., etc., etc. The letter B in the word womb, which means a house of water, and indeed a womb is a house of water. See, at these levels, the letters are the very matrix of reality. Of this, the Zohar says, "Come and see the first subject of the Torah we give to children is the alphabet. This is a matter that mankind cannot comprehend, nor can it rise in their minds, not to mention saying it with their mouths. Even supernal angels and the most sublime cannot comprehend it, as these letters are the mysteries of the holy name. We learn that mankind cannot comprehend it, nor to mention it with their mouths, and that supernal angels and the most sublime things above them cannot comprehend it." The Zohar says in Shlach Lecha, "We hear of the movement and permutations of the alphabets as the letters fly in the air. No one can understand them except for Mashiach or Messiah. All these letters never rest. They stand out and sparkle externally and rise and descend. No one could understand anything about them except for Messiah with great toil." Because it is not based off faith or belief that a baby is housed in water and that you blink to put water on your eyes, let alone at birth, the letter B signifies that water breaks, or that your body is mainly made out of water, or that breath is air that houses water. These are the very definitions of an absurdity. This is not subjective truth, but the opposite, objective truth. It is absolute and pure in its nature, and does not need recognition of any kind. It is the very light of the illimitable one, from which it is written, he wraps himself in light. And also it is written, Vayera Elohim et Or Kitov, and Elohim saw et haor, et aleph tav, the light, hinting to the first and last letter of the Lashon HaKodesh, or the alphabet, because it was precisely the letters that were the light. And so when it says he wraps himself in light, it means he wrapped himself in letters. Because it's written, Vayadat Hashem, you will know that I am the Lord. And neither faith nor belief is mentioned in the Torah, but da'as of Hashem, to know him. And it is precisely through the Lashon HaKodesh one comes to know him. Based off of these basic examples, every single letter in its fixed position describes the principles and how they're to be understood. Now, there is another video called The Crown Jewel of the Atik on this channel. And in that video is revealed all of the letters, all of their placements and locations. That video should suffice enough. But let us go into other ciphers to reveal deeper secrets about the nature of what's going on here. Now, many of you should be very familiar by now with the initial three phases of the Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or, the crown jewel, the mind, and the skull, or the three concealed heads of the king. That, of course, being the Ancient of Days. The hard spark, an example, the skull, or the 231 gates, has been made mention of and made known to you all to be the fronts and backs of the Sfirot. An example, the 22 letters are the fronts and backs of the Sfirot themselves. This, ordaining the highest level of many of the ancient Ilanot, is referred to as the Malbush of the Ein Sof, or the garment of the endless. Here we see in Ilanot, or Ilan, or tree, scrolls of the world. And we can see at the very top of the scroll, this particular image. Let us zoom in on what this says. We can see a close-up of the diagram here on another Elon. At the very top of it, it says Olam HaMalbush, or the universe of the garment. We see Reish Lamed Aleph, or 231 gates, Panim, and 231 gates, backs. We see the listing of the Sfirot, Keter to Malchus, including Da'at, and again on the left for the backside. We find that it is listed according to the letters, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zain, Chet, Tes, Yud, Kaf. The same thing is with the backside, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samik, Ayin, Fet, Sadi, Kof, Resh, Shin, Tav. We can see it depicted here again on another Elon. And again, at the very top of it, it says, Sefirot Sha'olam HaMalbush, the Sfirot of the universe of the garment. And we can see that this all has to do with the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. These 231 garments, or 231 gates, are the secret of the 22 letters as they relate to the 11 fronts and 11 backs of the Sfirot. We see.
So I think you guys get my point in the example. This is another culture and its religion mathematically explaining sacred texts and teachings. I have the link in the description of this video if you want to go ahead and watch the rest of it. It's actually pretty funny. He breaks down slang, some interesting slang words in there, and it is indeed all hidden wisdom. Okay, this is the codex of life that gets passed down. Whatever survives, and it gets passed down to the next generations. It's really, now I understand why, like in the Hindu culture, they do a lot of singing. Well, I mean, we can go on giving examples of cultures that sing their mythologies, right? To pass it down verbally as well, just in case it gets destroyed. Excuse me. Yes, it does. This is all Walter Russell's work. Indeed, all of it is. Walter Russell tied it all together, potentially practiced these things and tapped into all of this. He tapped into the universe and downloaded this information and shared it like FPV, your team, does for us. So next will be FPV.
As you all know, I have been filming the sunspots for over 4 years, and I've always wondered what they are and what causes them. Whilst filming the sunspots last year and looking at the luminaries we call planets and their locations to each other on Stellarium, I noticed that the positions of the sunspots seem to correlate with the positions of the planets in the ether. The periodicity, nature, and cause of sunspots has a
So this part of the video was why I played the very first video by Mr. MBB333, because he's showing you where the planets are all at as well, so that you understand the electromagnetism that's happening in the world right now. I know that when I checked the Schumann resonance yesterday, it was off the charts, spiking with energy right now. But again, let's hear what FPV Angels team has to say.
attracted scientific attention for centuries. Most early theories averred that they were of planetary origin. In particular, possible tidal effects were investigated not only in the past but up to the present day. Voigt, for example, showed how the combined influences of Neptune, Uranus, Saturn and Jupiter could give a close resemblance to the sunspot curve from 1749 to 1928. While Bollinger constructed a chart showing a consistent relation between the 11-year sunspot cycle and a similar cycle found by the 0 degrees, 45 degrees, 90 degrees configurations of Jupiter, Venus and Earth.
And again, my family thinks I'm crazy because of how much I talk about this. But we've got our own modern day Walter Russell showing us this information right before our very eyes. But look at it, it's almost like a heart monitor. Like we're watching the Earth's heart monitor. But like I read in the very first chapter of the book in the beginning of my stream, this is all cyclical.
For the period 1749 to 1955, but not all theorists assumed that gravitational forces were responsible. In 1951, Nelson showed that planetary configurations and sunspots were highly correlated with radio interference on Earth, while Williams established a correlation between electric cable failures, sunspots, and planetary positions. Despite these findings, most current literature on solar activity assumes that the planets do not affect it, and conditions internal to the Sun are primarily responsible for the solar cycle. The Sun's 11-year solar cycle is governed by the alignment of the planets, with Venus, Earth, and Jupiter's tidal forces influencing the solar magnetic field, scientists have found. The discovery helps explain why the Sun operates on such a regular cycle, something researchers had previously struggled to account for. The Sun goes through solar cycles every 11 years, with activity peaking or charging and waning, discharging, over this period. At the height of activity, the solar maximum, more sunspots tend to appear on the Sun's surface. It is also associated with more eruptions, with an increase of solar flares and coronal mass ejections, events that can have an impact on Earth. At the moment, we are in the solar minimum part of the cycle, where activity is at a low. In a study published in the journal Solar Physics, researchers from an independent German research institute say they have found evidence showing the role that planets play in the solar cycle. The tidal forces of Venus, Earth, and Jupiter produce a gravitational force that can cause changes to the plasma on the surface of the Sun. These forces are at their strongest when there is a maximum alignment of the three planets, an event that takes place once every 11 years. The researchers compared observations of solar activity over the last 1,000 years with the planetary alignment and found that the two are indeed linked. There is an astonishingly high level of concordance, Frank Stefani, lead author of the study, said in a statement. What we see is complete parallelism with the planets over the course of 90 cycles. Everything points to a clocked process. While the forces are too weak to change the goings-on in the Sun's interior directly, the researchers believe there could be an indirect mechanism resulting in the solar cycle planet alignment they observe. They argue that a physical effect that can change the behavior of a liquid or plasma, known as the Taylor instability, could be responsible. The Taylor instability can react to small changes to tidal forces, with a small shift creating perturbations on the Sun. Using computer models and simulations, the researchers found the momentum from the alignment from the three planets was enough to cause the changes observed. This means the planets, although through an indirect mechanism, may appear to be setting the Sun's solar cycles, the team concluded. As you heard from the independent scientists, they all seem to correlate with the science and explanations of the Walter Russell cosmology. From this Walter Russell illustration, he suggests that the Sun charges the planets, which could be what is causing the sunspots. Also, from this Walter Russell illustration, it occurred to me that the Moon, when it is in its waxing or in the charging phase, could it be being charged from the Sun, as it is being more and more illuminated? And when the Moon is in its waning or discharging phase, it could possibly be radiating its energy back to the Sun. But that is just my theory. Something else people will find interesting, and that I have noticed whilst filming the luminaries, and that people may be unaware of. Each luminary has its own unique cymatic signature. And if we go on the evidence we see that the waveforms that we associate with each luminary or star halo node, some are using shortwave and some are using longwave, which would probably be to regulate the speed of what they use to cross from east to west. Each waveform is also associated with a colour from the light spectrum, which relates to the workings of Walter Russell. Because what Walter was showing us, each octave has its own frequency in the colour spectrum, and probably has sound too. There have also been many other studies on how the sunspot cycle may affect our human bodies. And much research has been done over the last 3 centuries, which can confirm that influenza pandemics tended to occur during peaks of solar magnetic activity, which is at the height of the 11-year solar cycle.
Okay. I was in FPV's chat on his last live stream, and they were showing, I happened to be watching when this was playing, and it was confirmation to me. We are at a heightened stage of our solar cycle right now. The sun is it's had a huge uh, hole there for about 3 days now. Anyway, there's been major storms happening in the sun. And over the weekend, I was having issues with my heart rate. Like I felt like I couldn't catch my breath and it would race and it would skip beats. And I was letting my family know that I was concerned. I thought, I know that there's a solar storm happening right now, and I'm curious if that has something to do with it. Well, then 24 hours later, I started to get the symptoms of a cold. And now I've been trying to fight off this cold. Well, this cold and flu virus is happening all over the world right now. So this part of this video makes perfect sense to me. We're experiencing this right now. And in past events, um, yeah, I better not go there. But anyway, I'll continue.
And the cases of the flu fell and rose with the number of sunspots. Many other researchers between the years 1799 and the present day have also connected influenza with sunspots and/or atmospheric electricity. In the years 1645 to 1715, in the Maunder Minimum period, when there was virtually no sunspots, there was no worldwide pandemics of flu. In 1715, the sunspots reappeared, and between then and 1727, the sunspot numbers gradually grew to over 100 for the first time in over a century. In 1728, influenza arrived back over our realm, and we again had a flu pandemic for the first time in over 150 years, and it became more violent between the years 1733 and 1738, which was the peak of the next solar cycle. Not only is there a correlation between sunspots and influenza, but there is also a correlation between illnesses and the introduction of electricity to our realm. The extent to which geomagnetic and electromagnetic fields and waves affect biological organisms has grown into an increasingly important field of study over the last century. Beginning during the Industrial Revolution, humans increasingly generated artificial electric fields resulting from developments in industry and especially radar communication technology, power lines from the electrical grid, transport, and a plethora of consumer electronics. This substantially enhanced the scale and complexity of the electromagnetic environment. In effect, whether naturally or technically generated, variable electrical currents are a substantial source of electromagnetic radiation in the atmosphere. For example, all manners of radio communication, ranging from older radio location, radio navigation, and portable telephones, to the wireless communication network in the higher range of frequencies, which are widely used in domestic, medical, and industrial appliances. We live in a vast electromagnetic soup, which has an adverse effect on DNA and cell membrane integrity and viability, as well as immune and neuronal functioning. A large rapid qualitative change in the Earth's electromagnetic environment has occurred 6 times in history. In 1889, power line harmonic radiation began. From that year forward, the Earth's magnetic field bore the imprint of power line frequencies and their harmonics. In that year exactly, the natural magnetic activity of the Earth began to be suppressed. This has affected all life on Earth. The power line age was ushered in by the 1889 pandemic of influenza. In 1918, the radio era began. It began with the building of hundreds of powerful radio stations at low frequency and very low frequencies. The frequencies guaranteed to most alter the magnetosphere. The radio era was ushered in by the Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918. In 1957, the radar era began. It began with the building of hundreds of powerful early warning radar stations that lifted the high latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere, hurling millions of watts of microwave energy skyward. Low-frequency components of those waves rode on magnetic field lines to the Southern Hemisphere, polluting it as well. The radar era was ushered in by the Asian flu pandemic in 1957. In 1968, the satellite era began. It began with the launch of dozens of satellites whose broadcast power was relatively weak, but since they were already in the magnetosphere, they had as big an effect on it as a small amount of radiation that managed to enter it from sources on the ground. The satellite era was ushered in by the Hong Kong flu pandemic in 1968. The first commercial 3G network was launched in June 2003, which was closely followed with the onset of the SARS pandemic, and the 4G switch on correlates with the swine flu outbreaks during 2009. And we can only imagine what happened to the Earth's natural human resonance when SpaceX launched 60 satellites in Earth's lower atmosphere in May 2019, and a further 720 later that year. And more are being added all the time. The effect from these may not be known for many years to come. We are all a part of a living Earth, as the Earth is a member of a living solar system and a living universe. The play of electricity across the magnetic rhythms of this planet, the 11-year sunspot cycle, the fluctuations in the solar wind, thunder and lightning upon this Earth, biological currents within our bodies, the one depends upon all the others. We are like the tiny cells in the body of the universe. Events on the other side of our galaxy affect life here on Earth. And it is perhaps not too far-fetched to say that any dramatic change in life on Earth will have a small but noticeable effect on the Sun and the stars. Ley lines, which are another electromagnetic grid of our Earth, every race and culture in our realm has known about these lines for thousands of years, yet everyone had different names for them.
I just want to point out as well, Mr. MBB333 has been showing all of the flickering lights across the world. And to me, that's just another example of all of this energy surging through these ley lines.
We only have to look back at ancient cultures and see that the native Indians, for instance, used to call ley lines spirit lines, and their shamans used to use the electromagnetic energy in these lines to help them contact the spirits. They even designed their medicine wheel on the spirit lines. And throughout history, all megalithic structures have been strategically built on top of the ley lines. From the pyramids of Giza to Stonehenge, Notre Dame, Parthenon, the Vatican, the DC Capitol, Mecca, Aztec pyramids, the Bermuda Triangle, Coral Castle, even Tesla's lab in Shoreham, New York, including all nuclear power plants, military bases and stadiums, which are also used to harness energies. Like giant batteries, much of the grid where two or many ley lines intersect are marked with obelisks, such as the Washington, D.C. Monument, Vatican Courtyard, and Cleopatra's Needle in Central Park. These electromagnetic lines of the Earth are the veins and receive its energies from the Sun that connects and affects every living organism on Earth. And of course, there are also dark forces as well that are and were knowledgeable of these ley lines, such as secret societies, and Hitler, who was very much into the esoteric realms and worked very closely with Maria Orsic, who was a famous medium who later became the leader of the Vril Society. It is also very interesting that the Swiss lab CERN and the Brookhaven lab in New York both sit on ley lines, and both of these labs have a hadron collider that directly impact these ley lines, negatively and or positively. You can't physically see ley lines, but you can detect them by dowsing for them. What is also interesting to note is that it is said that where the ley lines intersect and meet, they also align perfectly with astrological constellations. If you plot these and other sites on a map, a curious thing becomes apparent. Many of them can be connected by straight lines. As I said before, ley lines start and end at prominent features and landmarks, like star forts, obelisks, churches or stone circles, and they are the nodes or terminal points of our realm's particle accelerators. Intersecting ley lines create vortexes or spirals of energy, just like a chakra. Ley line researcher David Cowan theorized that these spirals or vortexes are either negative black spirals or positive white spirals, much like the yin and yang energy. It is believed that these vortexes are capable of healing and aligning with our energy, as well as Mother Earth. Many people use them to meditate, hold rituals, and engage with this energy directly. Salantra King tells us that the cause of a negative area can be from many different imbalances. Perhaps a negative ley line or crossing of lines could be created or made by collective negative thought patterns of the people in the environment. Like Walter Russell said, every thought and action of anyone affects everyone. In order to create harmony, we need to achieve free-flowing positive energy grids and vortexes. It does seem that there is a focused effort to affect and manipulate the Earth's electromagnetic fields using these technologies. By controlling and influencing the geoelectrical grid, they can affect the Earth and also indirectly or directly can control our thoughts and emotions artificially, because we are all connected with Mother Earth. It does seem very likely that we all once knew the power of our Earth's electromagnetic grid and were able to use it, but because our accustomed technocratic elite play their favourite tunes on their radio station, doesn't mean we have to always dance to that tune. We can change the channel and learn how to use the electromagnetic grid to play a more harmonic tune. Maybe they need a machine because it is only a handful of technocrats attempting to control the masses. When enough are awake and aware that their machine is no match for all of our combined power. Love and empathy for humanity is key, and right now we are all still lacking in this due to the lack of true knowledge. Instead, we are all quick to step on each other's toes to get to where we think we need to be in business, our personal lives, and even within the spiritual communities. It may sound like a sci-fi movie to you, but these energy points all exist, and even more so, these technocratic elite make all their decisions and agendas based on this celestial and terrestrial knowledge. At this point in time, we don't even know who we are, where we are, what we are, or why we're even here. I believe that if more are aware of this natural phenomenon, break our mental bonds to the material matrix, and take action on these ley lines, which can be found all over our realm, then we can take back what is rightfully ours and positively manifest paradise on earth as the true empathetic, intellectual light beings we were intended to be, and not the slaves we are today. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching.
Thank you again to FPV and his APM research team. I highly suggest for those of you who haven't seen his content to check into the entire, all of them. Watch every single one of them. They're all powerful. I have the link to his channel in the description of tonight's stream. Let's see here. And on here are a couple of little shorts that give an example of this magnetism. This was last year.
Whoa.
Sorry, it was a little loud. So that was the earth showing off and releasing that energy.
Well, if you are aware of the human body, it has these chakras, and apparently there are more than 7 chakras. There are as many as 12. Some people say even more. Chakras are energetic whirling vortexes. They emanate from our spinal cord, which is the heart, the central nervous system, which goes to the brain. So we've got these swirling energies. In women, they spin in one way, and in men, they spin in another way. Some spin left, and some spin right. The people who are into and can feel this energy come into balance, and that's the place, and they can meditate better. They are in a state that few other people are in their daily lives, you know, and that's why people meditate. That's why people go into the quiet space, they're going inside, and that's a good place to go. Well, if you are aware.
I love hearing wisdom in all ways, shapes, and forms. And this is all wisdom.
I could talk about Buddhist monks who have sat in a cave for 30 years, and you can take a absolutely soaked horse blanket, and they're sitting out on a ledge, and it's 20 below outside. And they put this soaked blanket around him, and that monk, through internal focus, can generate enough heat to dry that blanket and not freeze. How is that possible? Well, because he has trained his mind to produce that inner energy that we all have, but very few of us ever get to that point to activate it. But it's all, the universe is in us. We are the universe. In one human cell, there is the universe. The complexity of a human being, we have no idea. We just go through life, you know, we bungle through, but we've never really closely examined what are we? What are we made of? We are made of stardust. Every atom in our body, well, we're carbon-based, and carbon comes from the universe. We are connected to the universe. I could talk about Buddha.
These are just some of the shorts that I've been watching lately. And I appreciated them, so I wanted to share them with you. This one's fun.
There's some crazy information from an ancient Indian temple. Look at this arch. See anything strange here? What are these strange things carved all around the arch? Flowers? No, these are not the flowers. Each one is a lunar station. A group of stars in any sector is called a lunar station, known as nakshatra in India. Let me zoom in. You see those letters in Tamil language that says Magam or Maga. This is called Regulus in modern astronomy. If you look at Regulus with your naked eye, it will look like one star. But only if you use a telescope, you can understand that it's actually made of 4 stars. But see how accurately it has been carved with 4 stars or 4 flowers in this arch. How did ancient builders know this without the use of telescope? There's some crazy.
Shout out Praveen Mohan, one of my favorite modern archaeologists. It makes archaeology fun. So many beautiful buildings that he reveals to the world that many don't even have access to. And in the very beginning, when I started to watch Praveen, he was talking about ancient technology and aliens, and it took me a while to finally understand that these are technology. They absolutely are just ancient, older versions. Yes, I like Praveen too. There we go, a group of 4 angels. This is going to be a longer stream tonight, so if you guys tap in and out, no problem. I really appreciate everyone that stayed here and engaged with me in the chat. It's always a lot of fun for me because, like I said, I enjoy learning. I've played this other gentleman, Ken McClellan. He is another gentleman that ties things together and is giving us revelations. Let's go ahead and tune in to Ken.
Welcome back to Apocalypse in Genesis. Did you ever hear of a guy named Zechariah Sitchin? He's the first one to make a huge deal of a red star at the crossing. He's the person who drove me into the deep end of cosmogony and eschatology, probably because the poor guy had no more idea when it was to return than Velikovsky knew who the culprits were. See,
Now, I just want to interrupt this for just a moment because I'm sharing this because I found, let me find the photos. Okay. This was from that big lunar eclipse, or excuse me, the sun eclipse that happened, what was that, 2 years ago that everybody was making a big deal about? Isn't that incredible? So these are the signs in the heavens that I've been paying attention to. This is from a few years ago too, but this is the moon. She saw this at night. But can you see the circle and the circle in the middle of it? This was 2024. This was how many months ago? 3 months ago that I took off of the FAA government cameras, but you can see it here as well, the circle with another circle like an eyeball in the center. And I don't know if this is real or if this is an AI generated photo, but either way, I'm guessing this is the reflection. And then I thought that this was kind of interesting. This was on Time Magazine a few months ago as well. And I was looking at all of the different symbology and listening into other channels talk about it, but it looks to me like it's showing the cities going dark and the different rulers keep an eye on, and what's going to happen with the stock market and technology and physics and all sorts of nonsense. But Ken's going to give us tie together these artifacts.
being Mars for Nibiru and Venus for Tiamat. So if this year comes and goes with nothing more serious than, say, World War III, then you know where I went wrong, trusting the mythological musings of amateur archaeologists, astronomers, and students of Sumerian. Embarrassingly, up till now, I've been trading in bogeymen. We're still looking for the two immediate signs of the apocalypse, the serpent and the phoenix, both expected momentarily, falling and rising like two comets headed for each other late next month. The first rock is a kuduro, one of those ancient stones the Hebrews were told to leave the hell alone in Proverbs 22:28 and Deuteronomy 19:14. As you know from last time, I committed the sin of Canaan in the book of Jubilees, attempting to understand the cursed things. On the right, you have my angel of death pipe, showing the close of the seventh Sar and God's holy week of creation. The spark at the bottom was to show a day sometime this year when the sun was expected to forcefully end the age of Pisces, just before a plumed serpent is tossed into the sea and a beast rises above her. If the solar superflare comes, that could mean the grid goes down for a third of the planet all at once. Imagine the 7-year famine that follows. Without power, what chance would our food delivery system have? None. And the U.S. sold its strategic wheat reserve back in 2007. Like the Palisades fire, we shall have destruction by design. Have you ever attempted to carve in basalt or black jade? It's hard. Even with diamond bits and Dremel, this would take you ages. And yet, armed only with similar rocks, the Taino Indians hammered away for God knows how long, simply to warn you about this year when the eclipses come to the axis of the equinoxes between 1 Aries and the cusp of Leo Virgo. For me, the logical conclusion is that they thought this year, like the one, half a precession ago, would be a matter of life or death for their descendants. It wasn't the ridiculous notion that goat's horns or lion's ears make pretty adornments on death masks. Revelation 13 suggests we're going to go from a Draco-centric view of the Northern Hemisphere to a lupus-centric viewpoint. In other words, what was north will be south and vice versa. And it seems we shall do so in a hurry rather than wait the usual 6 months. The way the verse is worded also sounds like our present dualism is baked into this place, like David is the dragon and Solomon his beast, or Quetzalcoatl the dragon and Tezcatlipoca the beast, only they've likely got the story upside down, or we're looking from the other side of our coming destruction. I believe we will see the smoking mirror, Tezcatlipoca, before we see the plumed serpent. And they are simply the ones doing a job for the Most High. I don't believe either of the passing celestial objects is hung up on your worship. Here's another view, a snapshot, if you will, taken a week earlier. The first of Aries has finally arrived Aquarius, whom the ancient Sumerians titled Enki, Lord of the Earth. And as the heron chases the serpent that immediately precedes, Dumuzi is rising to chop down the tree of life, just like the Asus of Celtic fame, if you recall. Jupiter and Venus were traditionally the planets to track as surrogates for the serpent and phoenix. So I guess the rhino at Lascaux, France has slain Aquarius and Taurus by the end of June. Jupiter will be just past the horn of Monoceros, and Venus, the Phoenix, will be arriving the Pleiades, as on the cave painting, which suggests that apocalypse could be 3 months of waiting for the shoe to drop, followed by the 7-year famine predicted last year with the sign from the Epic of Gilgamesh, Jupiter and Venus slaying the Taurian sun in the presence of Uranus. I suppose that could initiate the sort of world dictatorship communism mentioned in the book of Revelation or the wet dreams of the WEF. We'll see. The woodland Indians of Ohio, or perhaps their Nephilim ancestors, left us a sign that an eclipse near Draco would get us into serious trouble with the plumed serpent. For lots of reasons, I expect the one next month was the one that most concerned them, though I could show you stones indicating the following eclipse is when the pole shift actually happens. So maybe we're supposed to separate the idea of the appearance of Dan, Lucifer, or the Lamb of God, and the timing of his pole shift, which could take days or months. It's the rise of the phoenix behind him that tells the tale. Way before the Da Vinci Code, early 20th century, there was a real Sumerian scholar named Robert Langdon, and he wrote about this time of the crossing. In 1923, he translated Nibiru, the crossing, refers to the intersection of the celestial equator and the ecliptic, and the name was applied to Jupiter as representative of the planets which cross from the southern to the northern part of the Way of Anu, and vice versa. Some of the Babylonian texts indicate there were some significant omens to look for before the ecliptic shifts and the planets appear to change directions. Sumerians knew to watch for a time when Mercury bisects the sky, and at the close of March, he is at the vernal equinox. And Venus bisects the sky, and at the close of March, she is at the vernal equinox. And the moon bisects the sky, and at the close of March, he is at the vernal equinox. And between May and June, Jupiter will have reached the Milky Way in the sign of Monoceros, the symbol of Marduk, the son of God. The great sign to spot was a red star at the center of the universe, soon to rise behind the head of the new Aquarian sun. So next month, I expect to see Ningishzida, the serpent, falling, followed by Nebo, the candlestick, rising, and the Hebrews called them Abel and Cain. On March 22nd, a week earlier, we will have an interesting coincidence for Yale's Brotherhood of Death. You might recall how the Maya believed in five ahau to a creation, and how Venus carves a pentacle in the sky every 8 years. Well, on March 22nd, 322, the Pentacle of Pentacles ends at the first of Aries to mark the new age. You might try to figure out the morning star and Son of Man references in your Bible if you get a chance. Their heroes mark the seal of God. At Uxmal, Mexico, there is an interesting hint about our times. It symbolizes the cosmic cross of the celestial equator and the ecliptic by intersecting Orion's belt with the diamond of Virgo. Then with the dragon eye at Aries, it shows that the one who falls from on high will be looking up at the following Virgo eclipse. The riddle of the moment is why there are two sets of crossbones, and maybe it's a double entendre. The Virgo eclipse and Saturn's at the biggest event, precession's end, but the eclipse will take place over the course of, or the apocalypse will take place over the course of 3 solar eclipses from March 2025 to March 2026. And the important day to be ready for is that of the first prophet, a lamb descending from Pisces Aquarius. When the great solar superflare comes, it won't be like we were never warned. Thing is, we've always been familiar with the symbol on the back of the dollar bill, but almost no one knows where it came from. In the Illuminatus trilogy by Shea and Wilson, you find an interesting anecdote. The Continental Congress had asked Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams to arrange for a seal for the United States of America. None of the designs they created or which were submitted were suitable. And fairly late at night, after working on the project all day, Jefferson walked out into the cool night air of the garden to clear his mind. In a few minutes, he rushed back into the room, crying jubilantly, "I have it! I have it!" And indeed, he had some plans in his hand, and they were the plans showing the Great Seal as we know it today. Asked how he got the plans, Jefferson told a strange story. A man approached him wearing a black cloak that practically covered him face and all, and told him that he, the stranger, knew they were trying to devise a seal and that he had a design which was appropriate and meaningful. After the excitement died down, the three went out into the garden to find the stranger, and he was gone. Thus, neither the founding fathers nor anybody else ever knew who really designed the Great Seal of the United States. Now, Ohuelan apocalypse stones that have been dated to earlier than 8000 BC had the symbol. And one of their symbols was, the Eye of Providence, meaning that the people who had made them were an advanced race that lived before the evil eye. And I'm thinking the stone shows some very specific phenomena. For the first time in 25,627 years, we have a year with a union of the sun and moon at the top of the zodiac, opposite the star Heve, the womb of Virgo, and it's a perfect alignment of dad and mom. The Lamb of God in the north meets Virgo, giving birth to the Son of God in the south. It's this sort of Hieros Gamos you might celebrate at the Akito festivals held on the equinoxes. And the people would shout, Evi, Evi. Adam united with Eve. At the close of the life of Adam and Eve, we learn from Seth that after 6,000 years, Adam gets his rib back. And there's a saying in the Gospel of Thomas suggesting that we too will be united with a loved one. In saying 11, on the day when you were one, you became two. But when you become two, what will you do? Usher placed creation at 4004 BC, so it's high time we had another creation. If in our fertility festivals we celebrated sowing and harvesting the bounties of the earth, we would venerate the deities involved at the equinoxes, Marduk and Sarpanet, Osiris and Isis. Moses was a reformer priest of Osiris, which may be why the Kenites killed him and put Jethro in the golden mask, celebrating the plays of harvest and sowing, death and resurrection, Yehovah and Asherah. Adam and Eve, if we worshipped the ancestors, for that matter, if our descendants worshipped us after we passed on, they would pour us libations of wine, milk, honey, oils, or water. And if they veered just slightly from the path, and some did, they would use blood. And might that have been the mark of the beast? We really don't know how randy or gory the early agape festivals were, but if you read Plutarch, it's impossible to separate the bacchantes of Greece from first century Jews and Christians. Here you have two versions of the crowning of the destroyer, the coming of the Lamb of God. In the third ram, it was the rise of the Seth beast over Osiris. In the fourth ram next month, it will be the rise of Yahweh over Elohim. Our reversal begins, and it's not certain how long it will take. The North Pole has traversed 2,000 miles in the last century, but during the next phase, it's to move 100 times faster and twice as far. Marduk's symbol was the unicorn dragon, the Sirush, and he opened the age of Taurus, but the Hebrews kept the old name of God the priests had given to a lion, El. 6 millennia later, what was formerly the first day of spring is now the first day of summer, the day Jupiter and the sun arrived the Milky Way. Some thought that would be the day of the pole shift or reversal. Some stones show this year's autumn equinox as when we inherit a new creator, like the god of war is going to turn over a new leaf, or like that's the day of the reversal and Mars takes over from his grandfather Saturn, whose last day it is. It will be interesting to see how it plays out. The Jews see themselves the victors of Isaiah 61 as the owners of the planet. But I'm thinking Russia and China might have something to say. America, according to the reports, will have slipped to number 8. Meanwhile, the rebels of the secret societies make much of the 11th verse of the 11th chapter of the 11th book and see themselves inheriting the empire. Whatever the case, this year will sort out some of the Bible's questions on prophecy. For example, in Isaiah 9:15, you find the notion, the ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. So then you can wonder whether this contrasts the prophets of Deuteronomy 18, John the Baptist versus Jesus, or the Venus warning of March against the Jupiter warning of May, or the apocalypse of Aries as against the one of Leo. And then again, maybe all Isaiah wanted to say was, get ready by the first eclipse, or you can forget about the second. Not sure how well you can see it on the apocalypse pipe, but if you look closely, the great God in the West is attempting to safeguard life when he turns the planet upside down. In other words, the flood of the Bible, supposedly caused by Elohim of the South getting mad near Virgo, is the same thing that caused the creation of Genesis 1. The fire that erupts from the sun, aligned with Nibiru and Tiamat, needs to be put out. In other words, let there be light, but don't burn everything to smithereens. Did you notice that life, you can see DNA symbols 10,000 years old there on the front and back of the pipe, requires both Adam and Eve. In other words, he is on the right as Aquarius, and she is the reptilian or bird on the Pisces side. And I'm sorry the imagery is so rough, but quite often these artifacts would get smashed and dumped in fires by the Jesuits, who knew there was nothing new or unique in their religion. The bottom line to my meanderings is that the ancients honestly thought they had this thing of this cycle of creation and destruction down to a science. And by the end of this year, we will know if they were onto something. As always, I can't tell you what will happen, just maybe what our ancestors were thinking might happen. Back in the day, at different times, I was on 4 of the doomsday teams. And at no point in that time did I get the feeling that we had reinvented the civil defense program from back in the early 1960s, when any school, hospital, church, or public building was stocked as a shelter. So unless they set Elon loose with his tunnel boring machines to build bunkers, plan on taking a vacation before you have to choose what to do for the rapture. As for me, I'll be here, come hell or high water. Hashem bless you and keep.
I'm going to go back to this comment here. See the halo and personification of the halo in that last video. I see it. The next video, I'm going to, is it the next one? Well, when I get to Jay Dreamer's video, Jay Dreamer sees it as well. But he's going to have a different way of explaining it. And again, this is the fun of doing these streams, is showing how many of us can see it, but we describe it in different ways and make the connections. And I'll go from chat to chat, yelling and screaming, "It's a halo, it's an angel," and people think that they don't understand where I'm coming from. And so I have to spam the chat for a second and share your information in their chat. But um, it's a lot of fun seeing it. Another person, you guys were talking about it on your stream today, Bex, as well. And you can see in these examples tonight that in your journey with some of the panelists that you had up today, they were talking about the different, the flat Earth mafia, flat Earth, crater Earth, and bringing up different content creators. It's all the same. To me, we're all just trying to figure this out. Magnetism, macro to micro, quantum, Genesis machine. It's all seems to be the same message. Jay Dreamers does use your information as well. Yes. Okay, so who do I have on here for you next? And I'm gonna take myself off of the stage here for a minute, but I want to even acknowledge that these ancient practices of meditation and breathing and getting to a state of the I am consciousness, I know it's real. I've said this many times. on my streams before. But the reason why I chose this background is because when I get to a state of meditation, this is exactly what I see. And I call it my mind's eye, but I can see the torus field and the light and how it spirals around me. So I believe in the macro to micro. Okay, so who do I have here next for you? Yes, okay. So Jay Dreamers does a Disney cartoonified version of this information as well. And it's a lot of fun. I encourage my nieces and nephews to tune into Jay Dreamers as well because it is also very visually entertaining to tune into what Jay Dreamers streamer that's a tongue twister. Jay Dreamers streams are about. Okay. This was from his last stream, and it was titled Proving the Flying Spaghetti Monster. And I thought that that was so funny because I had never heard of the concept of the flying spaghetti monster. And apparently, it's a religion. But for those who have come in and listened to my last uh, few streams, I've played some animes um, from a religion, the Happy Science. And in those animes, it's all of this information as well. And even learning that he was a millionaire and created this religion through his connection in politics. I thought that was pretty interesting. But still, if you watch those anime movies, it is all of this information tied together as well. Okay, so proving the flying spaghetti monster.
For being a people eater, it's supposed to be kind of scary, but they make it smile. There's a reason why they want it to smile. Same reason the Cheshire Cat smiles and Humpty Dumpty and all these other ones, right? But these are just cartoonifications and embellishments of an actual physical place that is a part of our world that people cannot see right now, but can see every once in a while. Here's an example. These are some screenshots I took from the Electric Universe's Thunderbolts project. I believe this particular presentation is Symbols of an Alien Sky. Presentations about David Talbot's work. So basically, they put forth this theory that in the ancient world, an event happened, and it was a cosmic event, and that it was electrical in nature, and that people witnessed huge, massive objects seeming to all line up in the heavens. And I mean way bigger than the sun, way bigger than the moon. They all lined up, and people saw this primeval sun. Now, I discussed this primeval sun in a couple of my videos. I call this the apex dome. If you want to know more about the apex dome specifically and its relationship with the firmament, then please refer to that video. But basically, this is a part of the firmament. From my perspective, it's the apex of the dome. It's actually another dome that's inverted or a bowl shape, exactly like this colander is, except for it's like this, right? All right. Now, that's where the firmament breaks open when we go through polarity reversals. So it creates a hole right here in the middle. Okay. This would be the eye that is up there in the heavens, or the eye in the sky, or the eye of providence, or the all-seeing eye, etc., and so on and so forth. People see this as many different things. It says here, primeval sun ruled the world, shining most brightly under the night sky. This was also said to not move in the sky, but remain constant at the axis mundi, or at the exact North Pole at the center of the world, above it in the heavens, basically. Now you can see they make comparisons to all these ancient drawings and rock art and stuff. People were drawing what they saw in the heavens. A crescent came to adorn the primeval sun, and it certainly was not our moon. So then you see it grew this sort of crescent shape over here, which is the smiley face of the one-eyed flying purple people eater. I believe this is actually more of a purple color because it's depicted, and I'll show you some drawings. The apex dome was depicted in medieval art as being lined by a blue plasma and blue light that's around it, and then the inside of it was actually red. So this is the one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater. I'll show you the horn here in a minute. That comes out in just a bit. So like I said, this is a depressurization point. The plasma seeps into our world at this point, and it spreads out at the top of the dome, creating what was interpreted as many different goddesses and gods and destroyers and world eaters and things of that nature. So the plasma enters in through this hole in the dome, and it spreads downward, creating sort of a tongue, right? This is also the tongue shape, and it was seen as an axial pin, or the pin of the world. It goes by many different names. The stem to the plant of life, the root, the whole.
I agree with this statement right here. He's a lot of fun. And again, I send his links as well as FPVs, but J Dreamers does have an appeal to all ages. I agree.
Holy rood or rod, columns, beams, pillars, etc. And then also the god that sticks his tongue out, or the goddess that sticks her tongue out. Now, all this electricity blasts out of this, and this is actually plasma. So what people saw when they were witnessing Medusa turning things into stone was they were watching powerful electrical discharges in the form of ionized, probably hydrogen plasma from the plasmasphere, seep its way into our world, and it could petrify things. It could change their actual bonds. Now, this is a clip. So many of these things have made their way into our mainstream pop culture, which I love to talk about just as much as I do comparative mythology. This is one of the earliest movies ever made. It's called Impossible Journey or something of that nature, right? And these people basically want to blast off and go into space. This was made in the early 1900s, like maybe 1907 or something, somewhere around there. Now, at first glance, you might think that they traveled into the sun in this movie, but that's not the sun. The sun's rays don't squiggle around like that. Okay, so when you see the sun in ancient times with the rays depicted as all squiggly like that, that's something else. Not only that, but look at the sky around it. It's completely dark, and there's this huge cloud around it as well, right? This is the apex dome. This is the primeval sun that gave light to the world, and it had plasma that was seeping out of it. And this is also the Stargate. This is the way you can leave this world whenever the dome does open up, or the Eastern Gate, which is the gate that goes upwards, or the upwards gate. When that opens up, people can leave. If they have the sufficient technology and they can survive the trip, they can leave this world and they can go travel to other worlds. All right. But that's a good example of it. It's the same exact thing. The apex dome is also Medusa, whose face was put onto the aegis, or the aegis of Zeus, which is his shield. Also Aten, like Aten. Akhenaten, right? Aten is this god up here. Now, most people say this is just the sun. This is the point of focus up there in the heavens that we see every day. This is not today's sun. This is not today's light source. As a matter of fact, these rays are going down and they split off into hands at the end. Right? This is the primeval sun, or the primeval light that was in the sky that was seen, also known as Nibiru, and it goes by many other names too. And plasma came down out of that. And that plasma, when it was not as powerful as, the types of plasma that could petrify things, that plasma gave life to things. And it had many effects here in our world. In Hinduism, it says, in his rage, the Hindu god Shiva tore a lock of his hair. He tore a lock of his hair, and from that lock of hair arose his own dark aspect. Now, that the noodles of the spaghetti god, okay, the noodles of the plasma that come through the inverted dome, and they strain through the firmament itself, and the stars fall to the earth, those noodles come down. Whenever the electromagnetic barrier goes back up after the polarity reversal, that magnetism cuts off the plasma. It can no longer just flow freely into this world. And that is seen as the hair of some sky god being chopped off. Okay, and this is why barbers have the barber pole and a lot of barber god symbolism and stuff. So the same thing is happening here within Hinduism. So Shiva, which is the destroyer, which is the god of the apex dome, which is the plasma that's just outside of the firmament, the sleeping god, the meditating god. Shiva cuts a lock of his own hair, and out of that lock arose his dark aspect. Now, a dark aspect is related to those spaghetti noodles. Sorry, there's two main forces in this world. I've come to find there are good energy which comes from the earth, and not so good energy which descends from the heavens. Okay, that's just how I see it so far. Okay. But anyways, Shiva cuts off a lock of his own hair, and then this monster comes about from Shiva's hair. This is a picture of the monster. Not this guy, but take a look up above him. It's the spaghetti monster, basically, right? Meatball, spaghetti strands. You see that right there? Right? It says the life of the legendary king Nissus resided in a tuft of hair. His death resulted when Aphrodite Komateo removed the strands of life. These strands of life are plasma, okay? And they're depicted in pop culture, in video games, in movies, many different places. But it's basically a filament, okay? Plasma acts as a filament. It acts as like a rope, and it twists as it moves about, okay? And it's ionized gas as well. This plasma descends from the heavens like the hand of God reaching in through the firmament, which is also depicted in medieval artwork. And that plasma rushes in, and it will be attracted to electromagnetic forces. You upon your energy signature that you put out, the Valkyries of the heavens will choose to come near to you and therefore electrocute you or have some other effect on you, or stay away from you, right? Positive and negative forces. This is a clip from the series Loki, the Marvel Loki, where they open up basically Zeus's shield, right? They open up, this is symbolically speaking, the apex dome opening. This guy runs through it, and then he's changed into spaghetti. He's reverted back to the essential elements of life, which is plasma. You see it again. Here's Loki himself being attacked by the spaghetti monster. They don't really say what this is specifically, but this is symbolically is the spaghetti monster because that's where it lives, which is out there in space. Okay. And then it just comes and invades our world from time to time. This is also how it's depicted in the movie. This is appropriate because this represents a torus, basically. You've got energy that's going out and then back in. And then on the other side, you would have more energy on that side. But these are the strands of plasma or plasma filaments, basically, that connect world to world. It's also seen in Ghostbusters whenever all the containment system is opened up.
Okay, this just made me think of something. I know that it's been trending, that picture of Elon's nightstand, and it has the Vajra and other items on his nightstand. But is this what Elon's potentially trying to tell us, is that he's damn Loki? Oh my gosh. What a show.
Our containment system is the firmament. It's the dome above us. Whenever that apex dome opens up and the firmament rips open, you will see stuff like this. You'll see these fiery strands of plasma that, come down and actually do set things on fire. Now, this is what they look like in the modern world under conditions that are not so extreme, right? Our world goes through different periods of having the atmosphere electrically amplified and not electrically amplified. Right now, it's not so much. The Earth is powering up. The Earth is recharging, so it's drawing all the energy into it, which is up here on the surface that results in degradation and sicknesses and low moral standards and stuff like that. This is what they call a Steve. Okay, at first they had no idea what this was. It wasn't a part of the aurora borealis. This is a plasma filament. This is extremely destructive. It's not like the auroras. Okay, this thing right here, if you imagine that you had multiple ones of these that were all coming down out of a giant colander in the sky or an apex dome attached to the firmament, This would drag it along, sometimes splitting off at the end and looking like it's walking like a giant titan. This would definitely petrify the land, or even lift up the muddier parts of land and then hit that mud and then petrify that mud, creating mesas and towers and things like that. This is just an animation I made of the apex dome and the plasma volcano, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute too, because the plasma volcano at the North Pole is related to this image right here. So take a look at these two big bulging eyes, right? This is the plasma, all that spaghetti coming down. It's coming down. All that's plasma that comes down. But what are these two big bulging eyes? Well, this is at the North Pole. Directly under this apex dome, there is a plasma volcano. Okay, or a volcano. All volcanoes become plasma volcanoes when all that energy inside the Earth is expelled during a depressurization of the atmosphere, which also depressurizes the inside of the Earth, and it expels all these gases. They rush through cavernous systems and they blow out of the top in these huge pillars and columns of plasma. So the biggest one will have be seen by the most people in the whole world, which is at the center of the world, which is the plaza, which is the main street of the world, and which is where it should be, right? So that blue beam, I think it's blue because I believe it's ionized oxygen. That blue beam shoots up and it's directly underneath this apex dome. So this is a view from underneath. If you're nearby looking straight up, you would see this blue beam shooting straight up from the Earth. And then you would see that red eye, that evil eye in the sky, and all the brightness coming out of it as the plasma enters in. Here's a bit of a close-up view. The same thing earlier we saw. Remember, this is just a phase of the apex dome. So the apex dome above, because it's a light source and because it's an upside down dome, it goes through phases just like the moon goes through phases. So you see this one phase of it right here, the blue energy shooting up, and this is what it would look like. Okay, this is actually a real picture. I think this is some monument in New York or something.
Come to think of it, you know what else this reminds me of is that who's the name of what's that one artist that sold satanic sneakers and had his blood in the sneakers or something? Anyway, he did some really obnoxious music video. It has like he's sliding down this pole down into hell. So to me, that's what the representation of that damn music video is them, what they're receiving from this energy that Jay Dreamers is talking about. Interesting.
Something, but this is why they make that. This is Project Bluebeam. This is the Bluebeam projected out of the Earth, which many people interpret as different savior figures and gods and whatnot. But whenever it shoots up out of the Earth, just like with light pillars today, under the right conditions, especially foggy conditions, which are created whenever the atmosphere rips open, we get a vapor canopy and a worldwide mist. Those beams start spreading out towards the top. Okay, so it looks like some cosmic ethereal bird that's helping to create or destroy things. So at the top, it branches out. At the bottom, that plasma is shooting up out of a magnetic mountain. They say that Rupus Nigra is the black mountain because it's a magnet, basically. And that's why all of our compasses point towards it. If that's true, we would expect to find a dome of magnetism around that entire island. If that is true, and there is plasma, a focused beam of plasma shooting up from the center of it, some of that plasma escapes from sheer velocity, but the rest of it starts to fill up that dome. And then it starts to move around in a current, which gives us the Ouroboros, or legs of a cosmic stick figure. This is a beam of plasma as it is tested out in laboratories, right? I don't know if I want to rock this the whole time. All right, I think I'm good. All right, so this is a beam of plasma. This is what plasma does. A focused beam of plasma will shoot up. It splits off at the top, just like how we saw. This at the bottom would represent Hyperborea, or the Garden of Eden. And this dome of energy, or the Ouroboros, is the cherub that was placed with the fiery sword that turned every which way. That's electricity. It's following electrical current. But then you see on the side, we have this sort of toroidal field, this donut shape, right? It wraps around this, and you can see that there's like these two eyes on each side. these, if the plasma is coming in from above, trickling down everywhere, these would be the meatballs of the flying spaghetti monster. Now, from a different angle, you can see it's more donut shaped, and these are more cup shaped and dome shaped or bell shaped. And this is what a two-dimensional angle. So that's always important to consider, like the different angles or perspectives that individuals witnessed this from on Earth, and how that perspective influenced how they would describe that story going forward. But this is just one example of something that you could expect that people probably saw, if these things are true, if there's any merit to, there being a firmament and an apex dome and a plasma volcano and all these interesting, innovative theories. Hopefully you think that they're interesting at least. This gives us like the stick figure man that's seen all across the world, from cave paintings to rock carvings and stuff. The Kanaga symbol, the Dogon, are the ones that actually wear this symbol on their head. Just huge stick figure person on the top of their head, and they call this the Kanaga. At least in Phoenician and ancient Hebrew, I know that the letter K means like, as, or according to. It's a prefix. So if it's something similar to that language, Kanaga would imply serpentine-like, because Naga implies serpentine. All right, the eyes. So these are the eyes, right? These are the meatballs of the spaghetti monster. So on the left here we have plasma experiments done in a laboratory, and this is the field that it makes. So this is that donut-shaped toroidal field in the middle, and this is what it looks like in the laboratory, right? So we've got the owl face. Basically, you would have a beam of light that shoots up through the center of this, and you can see in the middle they have Atlas, right? That's the Atlas image. That's the stick figure right there. But you have a beam of light shooting up all the way to the top, and then if you could see the reverberations or the plasma making these shapes in the sky, you would see all kinds of different images. A giant owl's face, if you think it's a spaghetti monster, you would see two giant meatballs or something. Now, here's actual images. This has happened many times. This wasn't just, 10,000 years ago in the Younger Dryas or, anything like that. This is a cyclical event. The sky opens from time to time. We go through these different polarity shifts. Some are stronger than others. The depressurization can be much stronger if it's been a long time since the last one. It can be much weaker if it's been very recent, relatively speaking. So we have this event happen many times. One of those times was to kick off the Dark Ages. What actually caused the Dark Ages? This event caused the Dark Ages. Okay, in my opinion, I'm convinced so far. Anyways, up here we have many different drawings of this, not just the apex dome, which I've pointed out and talked about, which is usually surrounded in some sort of mist or fog, but the plasma snakes. This is the colander up here. Okay, this is a Renaissance drawing. This is the colander. This is the actual thing people saw and witnessed, and they drew it. And these are the plasma snakes, or this is the spaghetti that is being strained or seeping through that colander.
Okay, so that's Jay Dreamer's version of what happens when the pole shift, apocalypse, revelations, you name it. That's his interesting connections on the warnings of revelations. Let's see here. What did I have next for you guys? This is I just recently came across this, and it's a brand new channel to me. It's called I Never Knew TV. I haven't looked into any of their content except this video. This video came across my path, and I felt like, okay, this is part of the plasma idea. And this is for those who like to say that sun worship is a bad thing. He's going to explain to you what the Egyptians were really worshiping, and it wasn't the sun. It was what was behind the sun. So just like I showed you earlier in the stream when I just showed you my background and the torus field and what it looks like, and when I'm in meditation and I'm in that state, when I am at my most heightened state of meditation is when I'm directly under the sun. So I don't know what else to say. except that I believe that there is something to meditating outside in the sun, humming, breathing, stretching, putting the body in different positions, energy points. There really is something to it. And that experience is what also sent me on my pursuit of understanding religions and their messages, and then making the comparisons within um, the information I had found. Let's see here.
Nature is a body of God. So in the Egyptian religion, nature is a body of God. Nature is alive. The first thing that happened, and another first thing that happened in the reaction against nature religion, that the patriarchs did is they killed off nature. Nature is no longer alive. Nature is no longer sacred. They killed off the sacredness of the woman. The woman is no longer sacred. Now, and then they gave man, the dominion over everything that is nature. So now you can sell nature. Now you can destroy nature. And you don't even have to worry about saying, I'm sorry. And not only did the Egyptians believe in this, anybody who believes in nature, whether they're the Native Americans, whether they're the Asians who believed in nature, they all approach nature as being the cause of it all.
That's the part I don't understand, is that they pirated everything, right? They copied everything, right?
Not only did they copy, they plagiarized the Greeks who occupied the Egyptians for 250 years, who despised them, saw the power in pacification of religion. They plagiarized the Egyptians and then turn around and demonize the very people they plagiarized.
But I don't understand why they didn't copy the concept of balance that they used to give their environment sustainability.
Because that would eliminate the doctrine of exploitation. The first monotheistic pharaoh is a misnomer. The Egyptians only believed in one God, the sun. The sun, the force behind the sun. So when we have images of the Egyptians worshiping the sun 5 times a day, because what the Europeans can't get into is the conceptual act that was also the physical. They can see the physical act, but they can't see the conceptual act. They can't see that what the Egyptians were doing was they were worshiping the transit of Amen, which is the power behind the sun. So in their mind, they weren't worshiping the physical disk of the sun. They were worshiping the window upon the residence of Amen. Too complex for the European mind to wrap itself around. And to show you what I mean, look at statues and look at paintings of ancient Egyptians. Look how smart those people are. And look how comfortable they are with their thought, with themselves. Then look at the Greeks, look at their contemporaries. Look as how much of an effort they have to make an impression, because they're acting out of flesh and they're acting out of ego. And they're not smart as the Egyptians. The Egyptians were very smart people who lived the life of the mind. They had no ego, no necessity for the ego. Now, they were they were the first people to come up with an understanding of the Creator and our relationship to it, and that we are one big family. We are all part of.
Okay, just another perspective on a culture and their worship of the sun and the information that they received. I'm consistently seeing here, though, that no one can prove who was the first to do anything. I mean, whoever survives these resets will claim to be the original, but consistently we see that survivors and become refugees, and refugees potentially find other survivors and they create new bloodlines. And whatever the archaeologists have dug up about ancient human beings, ancient uh, animals, and their remains, we have no idea how many levels there are into what we consider Earth and what is below, and how many different versions of a human, how many different versions of a reptile, and so on and so on. No one really truly knows how far that ocean goes and what's underneath it and what civilizations were wiped out from past resets. So let me see if I have anything else here to share with you guys. Vibe of Cosmos. Vibes of Cosmos just released another recent video, and I thought that it was interesting because it's showing in their way what happens when the sun moves into a different gate, right? Into a different gate and creates a new ice age or another ring, another ice ring or ice wall, due to how far the sun and the moon are away from that particular location. This goes back, I don't know if you want to call it flat earth, crater earth, whatever you want to call it. But it's another really fun animation to look into. This video is called Venus and Mercury. So we're seeing a bird's eye view over and over again. And there's the moon. For those of you who are not familiar with Vibe of Cosmos content, I think it's a woman, if I'm correct. She shows the map of this realm. It is a reflection on the moon. But there's that damn eyeball again. But what's cool is showing the rings. How cool is that? See, macro to micro. And Dom, you mentioned that show Silo. These would be considered silos. So that sci-fi series is shining a light on this. So if these areas are no longer receiving sun, then they can't grow anything. Life can't grow the same way without that natural sun. Now that's the Mars. Wasn't that fun? Just another content creator's vision on this realm. Yeah, I think that this is what Five of Cosmos shows that these luminaries are almost like babushka doll energy spheres. FPV breaks down those different spheres as well and shows us the nodes with the stars and what happens through his animations. I think I showed that in 2 videos ago. Okay. Well, I'm done sharing the videos with you, and I'm going to try to see if my old computer will allow me to play this album. Let's see. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's presentation. I had a lot of fun with all of you. I'm glad that that actually played. But yes, that was a pattern recognition extravaganza. I was going through 3 years of albums and moving them into this brand new one. And when I created that album, then I had to try to find the videos that I thought would be helpful to me tonight in tying it all together. But I wanted to do that in the very beginning. And unfortunately, it didn't want to work then, but it worked now. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. Everybody has a little piece to the puzzle. And I look forward to the next stream with all of you. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Be blessed. Be aware of what's happening around you. And take care.